Hey, hello. It is really great to be with you. And to start off with, I'd like to ask us a few questions, and maybe you could have a bit of a discussion about them with members of your household, or you could get really creative and perhaps design a poster or something to display your answers, or maybe just write them down in a notebook. But most of all, think them through a little bit, okay? The first thing, dead easy. What is it that you really enjoy doing? And what are those things that you're not so keen on? Have a think about the whole host of stuff. For example, include different types of weather or seasons, different emotions or attitudes that you appreciate and ones that you don't, as well as things like types of holiday, places you like to go, stuff that you like to do, TV programs, school subjects, all that kind of stuff. What is it you really enjoy doing? And what are those things that you're not keen on at all? Okay? So once you are quite clear of your list of things that you thoroughly enjoy and things that you're not so keen on, have a think about this. In general, do you find that you avoid all of the things that you're not so keen on? And do you rush and focus all of your attention on all that stuff that you love the most? But the stuff you don't like, do you leave that as much as possible? Now, I'd like you to have a chat together about how you feel when stuff that you don't like happens. What emotions do you go through? And can you think, are there any positives ever when we go through difficult times? Final question for now. Have a little chat or discussion or write down your thoughts about this. Do you think that life would be better if we never ever had to go through anything difficult throughout the whole of our life? Would it be better without any of the tough stuff? What's your answer? But have a little think about why that is your answer. What's your reason for giving your answer, okay? It would have been great if I could have chatted with you in person about these questions. If I had been chatting, I definitely would have listed things like cycling, going to the cinema, going to the theatre, visiting friends and family, going on holiday. All of those things would have definitely appeared in my love to-do list. And probably in the things I'm not so keen on, I would have put dusting, ironing, administration. Definitely not keen on any of them things, that's for sure. And I think I'd also be very tempted to say that, yeah, I think life would be better if we didn't have to go through anything difficult ever. I'd be tempted to give that as my answer. But I'd have to admit that sometimes when I have overcome something that I have found really tough in life, I've actually found it very helpful in the long run. For example, I might have grown through it in my understanding, or grown in my confidence, or just become more resilient and learn something new. And no one ever likes losing, is that right? But again, I have to admit that sometimes I think it's a really good thing to lose, because losing someone a sport that I love spurs me on to improve. I think, wow, if they can do that, then maybe I can as well. So losing actually does me good. It makes me appreciate how other people are and their gifts and talents that they have, and think, what else could you pull out the bag, Bren? What else could you do? How much could you improve? So even losing, I think sometimes is helpful. But am I happy when tough times come? No, I'm not. And do I wish that I could take away the painful times that I see other people going through? Most definitely I do. So how then do we get a healthy balance between the good stuff and the tough stuff that happens to us all in our lives. Is it possible to thrive rather than just survive? And how do we stop the difficult things destroying us and messing up our life? Because let's face it, when we're going through tough stuff, that's how it can feel, doesn't it? Like it's the end of the world and we'll never get over it. Transformation follows isolation. That's been our theme for this week, hasn't it? Now, having been in lockdown for the first time in our lives, personally, I have found it extremely isolating. What about you? I live on my own, so it is hard just having me to talk to all of the time. Thank the Lord for technology, where we can connect with people still via Zoom and FaceTime and WhatsApp and the phone. But here's a question. Would you say that you are transforming through this difficult time? Can something good come from tough times? What do you think? What would it look like? And how would you know for sure that something good's happened to you? What I'd like us to do now is to go back in time together to a place when Jesus lived on the earth, and a time that was extremely tough for Jesus. A place where we find Jesus consumed with sorrow and completely gets abandoned by all of his friends. As you're listening to what happened, think about how Jesus handles this situation.
Then Jesus led his disciples to an orchard called the oil press. He told them, "Sit here while I pray a while." He took Peter, Jacob and John with him. An intense feeling of great horror plunged his soul into deep sorrow and agony, and he said to them, "My heart is overwhelmed with anguish and crushed with grief. It feels as though I'm dying. Stay here and keep watch with me." He walked a short distance away, and being overcome with grief, he threw himself face down on the ground. He prayed that if it were possible, he wouldn't have to experience this hour of suffering. He prayed, "Abba, my Father, all things are possible for you. Please don't allow me to drink this cup of suffering. Yet what I want is not important, for I only desire to fulfill your plan for me." Then he came back to his 3 disciples and found them all sound asleep. He awakened Peter and said to him, "Simon, are you asleep? Do you lack the strength to stay awake for me for even just an hour? Keep alert and pray that you'll be spared from this time of testing, for your spirit is eager enough, but your humanity is feeble." Then he left them a second time, and he went to pray the same thing. Afterward he came back to the disciples and found them sound asleep, for they couldn't keep their eyes open, and they didn't know what to say to him. After praying for the 3rd time, he returned to his disciples and woke them again, saying, "Do you plan on sleeping and resting indefinitely? That's enough sleep. The end has come and the hour has arrived for the Son of Man to be handed over to the authority of sinful men. Get up and let's go. Don't you see? My betrayer draws near." At that moment, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, along with a large crowd of men armed with swords and clubs. They'd been sent to arrest Jesus by order of the ruling priests, the religious scholars, and the Jewish leaders. Now Judas, the traitor, had arranged to give them a signal that would identify Jesus, for he told them, "Jesus is the man I will kiss, so grab him and take him safely away." Judas quickly stepped up to Jesus and said, "Rabbi, my teacher," and he kissed him affectionately on both cheeks. Then the armed men seized Jesus to arrest him. One of the disciples pulled out a sword, and swung it at the servant of Caiaphas, the high priest, slashing off his ear. Jesus said to the mob, "Why would you arrest me with swords and clubs as though I were an outlaw? Day after day I sat with you in the temple courts, teaching the people, yet you didn't arrest me then. But all of this fulfills the prophecies of the scriptures." At that point, all of his disciples ran away and abandoned him.
Now, if you know more about Jesus than this one moment in time in his life that we've just heard about, you will know that from then, things actually went from bad to worse for Jesus. Things didn't get any better straight away. You'll know that he ended up suffering the most humiliating and brutal death ever to be recorded in history. However, though, this then led to the most powerful moment in history as Jesus conquered death, came back to life, proving that he is God. Jesus made it possible for us all to know God personally and know of his unconditional love for the whole of humanity. All this isolation, grief and pain, God turned into something beautiful, amazing, life-transforming. But what I don't want us to do is to just brush past all the tough stuff and focus on the good stuff. Just for a moment, I'd like us to really get and listen to how hard it was for Jesus, how difficult a time he went through. We hear him pray, don't we? Asking God to stop this thing from happening because it was so hard and so painful for him. Humanly speaking, he did not want to have to go through that tough time. And on top of that, 3 times his mates let him down. Then another one betrays him, and then they all completely abandon him. Imagine how on earth you would feel if all of those things happened to you on the same night. Unbearable, innit? But how does Jesus handle it? Is there anything that you and me can learn from him when we're going through tough times, I wonder? I noticed 4 specific things that Jesus did that I think we can all learn from. And the first one's this: Jesus reached out to others. He told his friends how he was feeling and he asked for help. Yeah, they weren't able to help much in that situation at the time, but Jesus still saw the value and the importance of reaching out to others when you're in pain. Second thing, Jesus accepted the situation. He didn't try and run away from it or pretend it wasn't happening, burying his head. He accepted it. Third thing, Jesus put God's way above his own desire. Even though he was finding things so tough, he prayed, "Not my way, but your way, God." And fourth thing, Jesus trusted God's way. Even though he was thinking about the possibility of changing things, he chose to do the right thing for his life, and as a result, received the strength from God to carry it out in the right way. Think about this for a moment. How do you handle the dark days? You know, those days where nothing seems to go right and it feels like everything and everyone is against you. Those days. How do you handle them? One thing that I have noticed is that we can often choose unhelpful ways to cope because we think at the time that that's the best way of handling the situation. Sometimes people can try to numb the pain through self-harming. Others try to gain some power back by controlling their eating. And some choose to act differently, become someone they don't really want to be, agreeing to do things they know they shouldn't in the hope that the situation is going to swing back in their favour. Some get angry and fight back and become the bully. Others shrink into themselves, trying to hide, hoping the problem will just disappear. What about you? How do you handle the dark days? What do you choose to do? One thing that I have noticed about all those things I've just mentioned is that rather than helping us, they actually end up controlling us and making the situation far, far worse. Is there something for us to learn from the way Jesus dealt with the tough stuff to help us deal with our tough stuff better? If anyone mentions high school to me, my usual response is something along the lines of, "Ah!" I didn't enjoy high school, if I'm really honest. I would say that high school kicked the life out of me. Year 8, I started getting bullied and I chose not to tell anybody. I felt at the time that that was a good way of handling it. I thought if I just kind of buried my head, it'd all go away. And as a result, I went through the whole of high school feeling a little bit like a Billy No Mate, really. I find the whole thing very hard and very tough. Now, I actually chose to become a Christian when I was 12 years old, just before I started high school. So obviously, I used to talk to God a lot about what I was going through. And I used to ask him to take it away, make it better. I didn't really want to be experiencing school so tough. And God didn't take it all away and didn't magically make school better. But what I noticed was that as I was talking to him, God was teaching me stuff about myself and about others. And I was learning. But also, I was getting through it. Even though it hadn't gone away, I was getting through it. And I managed to make it to the end and did all my exams. And I didn't get too bad marks in the end, actually. Some not brilliant, though. Age 18, I went off to Bible college. It was a live-in Bible college. I went for a year. And I'd never stayed away from home before, so it was all a bit new. And whilst I was there, pretty early on, I realised how shy I had become through my time at high school and how fearful I had become of other people's opinions of me. In fact, there were times when I'd skip the college meals because I just felt so self-conscious. Absolutely ridiculous because I love food. And I remember one day walking along the corridor and I said to God, "This isn't who you made me to be. You didn't intend me to be this shy person who was bothered by what other people thought. Will you help me? Help me be who you intended me to be." And I heard God agree with me. Felt he was saying, "This is a good prayer, Bren." And he said to me, "Will you just do whatever I ask of you this year?" Now, in the college that I was at, we went away 3 times throughout the year on mission trips, they call them, going and working with other churches somewhere else within the UK. And so, as a result, I got asked to do lots of things that, to be honest, scared the life out of me. I didn't particularly want to do them, but I remembered what I'd prayed and I remembered what God had said. And so I chose to say yes, even when deep down inside, I was thinking, "No, please, no, don't make me do that." Things like being in a church or someone's house and talking about Jesus and praying for people, even doing that on a beach and on a busy high street in a holiday town. Absolutely crazy, it felt to me at the time. But I did it. And you know what? I found that every time I prayed, "God, will you just help me?" I find the strength and the courage, and I got through it. More than that, I started to become the person who God had intended me to be. Nowadays, when I meet people for the first time and they get to know me a little bit and I start telling them about my time at high school and at college, they can't imagine that I was ever quiet and shy and insecure. They think of me as being very sociable and a bit more confident than that. And I am sociable and more confident than that now. And so when they say those things to me, I just smile, not just on my face, but in my heart, because I just know that God has answered my prayer and enabled me to become who He intended me to be. God did not take away my painful time of school, but He was so with me through it, and He taught me good skills in knowing how to deal with it better in the future and becoming a better version of me. I still don't enjoy going through difficult times, and God's ways sometimes confuse me and they're not always the easiest to follow. But one thing that I have learned, that when you're going through a tough time, the best person to go through it with is definitely Jesus. He's the one who makes sense of my head when I am confused and hurting and broken inside. He's the one who never leaves. He's the one who helps me see things from a different perspective. And more than that, He is able to transform my life out of the isolation that I am feeling in those moments. God's ways is always the best way, and living life with Him actually changes things. And God is always able to bring good out of any and every situation. So I would encourage everyone to trust Him. Have you been able to get yourself some chocolate? I have. Here is mine. It is my favourite bar of chocolate, I have to say, although I do like many. This indeed is one of my favourites. I absolutely love when I go into a shop and I see this gorgeous purple wrapper with this red bubbly writing on. For me, what this is saying is, Bren, you need to buy me because you need to eat me, because I just love this chocolate. I love seeing the shiny wrapper letting me know that a special treat awaits. Now, what I'd like you to do, if you can cope with the suspense, is just open the wrapper of your chocolate bar like I am doing now. Mine. Oh, have a sniff. How good does that smell? And let's undo it. And do not rush to eat it. Just hold them for a moment, side by side. Oh, this one smells so good. Looks absolutely delicious. Oh, but what I've noticed is now that I have taken the chocolate out of the wrapper, I'm not really that interested in the wrapper anymore. In fact, it's just become a little bit rubbish, really. Now then, what if I asked you now to do this with your chocolate? Put your chocolate in your wheelie bin and eat the wrapper instead. Would you do that if that's what I asked you to do? I'm really hoping that you're just shouting, no! Who on earth wants to do that? Why would you throw away the best bit and leave yourself the worst bit to munch on? I mean, nobody in their right mind does that. Right? More importantly though, I think that when we choose to leave God out of our lives, when we say, God, no, I'm not interested in doing things your way. I want to do it all my own way. Thanks very much. I think what we're doing is we're throwing away the best bit of our life. We're throwing away the bit that actually makes us complete, the bit that actually gives us purpose and value, the thing that keeps us together and makes us whole and complete. I believe when we leave God out of our life, we are throwing away the best bit and leaving ourselves with the rubbish second best, really. Why would we want to do that? God doesn't always take our difficult times away in an instant, and sometimes that can make us feel like God's not there, or worse, that he is there and just doesn't care. One thing that I have learnt, if we want to experience transformation through isolating times, then we need to stick with God and play our part. P-A-R-T. What does that stand for? P stands for practice. We need to practice spending time talking with and listening to Jesus in prayer. A, accept. Accept the help that you need. Don't fight it alone. R, reach out. Reach out to others. Talk through what is happening with those that you trust. And T, trust God. Trust God that he loves you. He promises to be with you and will never break that promise. And he promises to help you through any and every situation. Nothing is too difficult for God. Trust him. Well, we began our time together by asking a few questions, didn't we? And I encouraged you to chat to members of your household or some of your friends, or maybe write your answers down or design a poster and get really creative. And so I'm going to leave you with 2 questions and encourage you to do exactly the same with them. And here they are. Question 1. Is your way of handling things different than how Jesus would handle them? And question number 2, what difference would it make to my life if I handled things God's way? What difference would it make to your life if you handle things God's way?